welcome everybody. It's a bit windy outside, right? But thanks for the one that are here. And welcome to the DNB market update. First, by the ones that do not know who I am, my name is Hvistendahl. I've been heading seafood globally in DNB for the last 12 years. And I have been traveling regularly to Chile, actually since 2001. And why are a bank like DNB up north doing these things? Perhaps because we are the world's largest seafood bank, thanks to all our clients. So it's kind of natural to us. We will divide the session between 3 people from DNB. First, I will talk a bit about current issues. Then we will have our equity analyst, Ola Trovatn, giving you the latest from his end. And then Esteban Szasz from our Santiago office will finish it off by talking about the financial markets. But this is what I'm going to talk about. Current issues in salmon farming as we see it. So this is what I will be touching upon. As you probably know, and that you will learn from Ola later, the big thing here is that in the coming years, we see that demand exceeds supply. It's no way that supply can meet the demand for salmon. But things needs to be, and how will you be able to increase supply? You need new technology and to farm salmon in a different way that has been done. And then I need to touch upon sustainability, because if you cannot produce salmon in a sustainable way, you will not be allowed to grow at all. And this, especially in Norway, and actually in all the production areas of salmon, we see an increasing strong trend about this social license, politics and regulations all linked together. And yeah, I will tell you. So this is the big picture, right? It looks good, or does it? Of course, you can get really high prices, as we see, but in industries that don't grow, the dynamics isn't that good. In a way, it's a lost opportunity. I think that salmon is sold to 150 countries or so today, but still, we think that it's a good product. It ticks so many boxes. It should you should be able to produce more. And of course, in industries like this, the incentives for technical disruption is really high. People struggle to find other ways of doing this, which is of course a risk. And then despite the gap between supply and demand you saw on the former slide, because then you thought, prices must be really, really high. It actually hasn't been that way in 2023. It's kind of a mixed thing. If you look at I suppose your right or your left, the NOK bar and the slide, you see that if you look at the salmon price in Norwegian kronas for the Norwegian players, it actually has increased by 13%. But that is mainly due to currency. Because if you have a look at the salmon price from Norway in euros, it's actually flat. And I think I should just focus on the American market. The American market is 25% of all salmon consumed. And both Chileans, Norwegians, Canadians, they try to sell to this market. And what we see is that from Norway, they sell where the price is the highest. And it's probably a niche into the US, where the Norwegian salmon has a good reputation, so they are able to have high prices in the US, especially if in Norwegian kronas. And also for the Canadians, and especially Atlantic Canada, they have this strong distribution chain into the US, so they are also able to keep up prices. And although salmon is a relative winner in the US, there has been a small reduction in demand last year, and that has mainly hit the Chilean industry. As you can see on the red bar, that the price for Chilean salmon has decreased by 7% during the last year. But then again, going back to the former slide, we think that this is a temporary issue, because if supply still struggle to grow, and the economy in the US is getting stronger and stronger, we think that demand in the US will pick up, and that will result in good prices for Chile. And these are the prices we see. These are mainly Norwegian companies that are listed up here, and these are EBIT per kilo. Let's see. Here you see the top one. They earn like 36 NOK per kilo. So it's a huge variation here. And that is mainly, used to, depending on where they farm. The density between farms is about the areas they produce in, and it's a big difference. I think if I should comment upon on the one in Chile, you see like movie Chile is like below 10 NOK, which is still, I think, it's okay by the Chilean industry, but there is room for improvement here. Yeah. And then, do we need a shift? In order to farm fish, you need three things. You need licenses, you need people, and you need investments. But are things going in the right direction? If you see the upper red curve here, this is productivity per license. So you can see that per license, you're actually producing is very, very flattish. And then even more strange is the blue curve. That is how much salmon you're able to produce per person working in the industry, and you see that that's actually going down. And that's not normal, right? Because industries, they trend to move in a direction that you become more and more efficient. It's not so here. And then the last one, that is, how much salmon is produced according to how much you have invested. And then you can see that is going down. That could be also a result of the fact that the industry is becoming more and more capital intensive. There's a lot of investments going on related to big smolt, for instance. But it's not a nice picture. So the totality here is you need to do things in a different way than we do today, especially in Norway. So why can't supply keep up? This is summing up. Because it's a biological ceiling for how much you can produce, and it seems that we are hitting that ceiling now. New technology is needed in order to do things differently, and also, for the industry to demonstrate that they can grow in a sustainable way. Otherwise, politicians will not allow them to do so. Then we move on technology. I suppose most of you are tired of seeing this guy, but that actually, we think this is true in the salmon industry. 10 years from now, we think that you have learned, to organize where you have the sites in a different way. We think that the learning curve with big smolt is improving. We think that we will see much more closed farming in closed compartments, and also deep farming below the lice belt. And of course there is land-based and there is offshore. These are the things that I was talking about. If we start here on, for instance, the deep farming and the close, which you see on the bottom pictures here, Like Lerøy, they say that 20% of all of their investments going forward will be on these kind of structures. And it's actually needed in the western coast of Norway. So let's see, because you know, most companies, they are waiting for new environmentally friendly licenses, and they have been waiting for like 3 years or so they are kind of impatient. But we think that this is needed in order to farm in a better way. And then you see the land-based facility of Salmon Evolution. You know, that has been built on time, at cost, and as of now they are farming perfect quality. But of course, the proof of the pudding, you will see when they produce at full density. As of now, I think that we have raised equity for 24 times, for land-based salmon farmers, 6 different farmers. And we actually think that this is an interesting year. We think that we will see proof of concept both for the recirculation technology, but also, of course, for the flow-through. For instance, that there is a recirculation initiative in China. You know, it is interesting to see. And if you get proof of concept, we think that there will be much more of this. As of now, the flow-through setups that we have seen in Norway seems to be, you know, the most successful. But let's see where this takes us. And we have done, you know, perhaps the test is when we come up with the debt to these type of companies. And as of today, we are financing 4 companies, and we expect to do 4 more in the coming years. Perhaps mostly in Norway, and perhaps 1 in Iceland. And then, of course, it is the offshore rig that SalMar Aker Ocean. As of now, the initiative has been put on hold due to uncertainty regarding the resource tax, which is, hopefully they will be able to do so sooner or later in Norway or another place, because here you see a combined efforts of a very good fish farmer, but also Aker, which I think that has been involved in 60% of all floating installations in the ocean globally. So hopefully this is okay. And then it's not only on the former slide, you know, the things that cost a lot of money that will move the industry forward. There is a picture here from the digitalization efforts of Mowi, which I think is important. It is genetics important, and also new freezing technology. If you can use new freezing technology, for instance, to avoid air transportation, that would be great. Then to the big issue, sustainability. In a way, perhaps more so in this industry than in most others. It's like, you know, your bottom line is very linked, you know, to farm in a very good way, then you get the profit, right? It costs a lot with mortality, it costs a lot if the size is too small, and it costs a lot, you know, you know, when you treat the fish. But the other thing here is that the sustainability is linked to the future prospects here, which I touched upon. You know, to get the social license and acceptance to farm salmon and to grow the industry, you need to do things in a proper way. Yeah, perhaps this is a bit bold. Yeah, it says salmon farming can help to save the planet. It can help. It will not save the planet. Because, you know, it ticks all these boxes when it comes to ESG, CO2 emissions. Remember that 1/3 of all CO2 emissions globally is from food production, and it's also about biodiversity, you know, to make use of the oceans here. So, for instance, on COP 28 this year, in Norway, it's mostly about energy and energy transition. But if you were there, you would see that there was a lot of focus on how we produce food. So this is the guy, the head of FAO. He says that, you know, we need to at least have 75% growth in aquaculture by 2040, to reach the goals of the Paris Agreement. And actually, I was allowed, in Norway, it's a lot about energy, but I was invited to give a speech at the Swedish pavilion because they actually had one day only to aquaculture. Because this is important, and of course salmon cannot solve the world, but the way it is farmed, it's a lot to learn from this that could be transferred to other species, which could be affordable for a lot of people. So this is really important. Yeah, and for those who do not know who this is a picture of Norwegian police carrying away Greta Thunberg, which she is usually very against, everything that has to do with energy, oil, and so. But here she is demonstrating against windmills. So these 4 letters, DNSH, do not no significant harm. This is the important part of the EU regulations. Don't forget your blind spots. So she's against windmills because this is not so good for indigenous people. So, this, on one hand, this is a fantastic industry. It ticks so many boxes when it comes to ESG, but this scale seemed to shift a bit lately. It's more increasingly focused on this do no significant harm. And if we are in Chile, this has to do with local footprint, it has to do with indigenous people, and it has to do with the use of antibiotics. But it is still a good industry. It's more the solution than the problem, but all industries can improve, must improve. And then, what are banks doing about this? We are the tools of the politicians. We are nudged to transform our balance sheet from the good stuff. From the bad stuff to the good stuff. And salmon is, and aquaculture, fisheries also, that is part of the good thing. And then what we do, this is quite concrete and powerful. We use green financing and also sustainability-linked financing structure. So these are small letters, but this is what we have arranged of volume. And you can see that there is a lot here in the salmon value chain. And you see that on the bottom figure here, it's more than $10 billion that has been arranged. And for, it's not that you need to be perfect to get this type of financing, but you need to say, we will report on important measures, and we will say that we need to go in the right directions. So within the salmon farming industry, of course, there is always something related to CO2 emissions, but it is also something related to fish health. That could be mortality or certifications. And for instance, in Chile, also the use, to reduce the level of antibiotics. On the other side here, you see this is the goal of a movie. They target, to have 100% of this green or sustainability-linked financing by 2026, and they actually achieved 90% as of now. And this is important to us. So all the client managers that work in seafood, they have this activity goal that whenever you talk with the financing with the clients, then you need to touch upon, should we do a green or a sustainability-linked structure? And then, of course, these companies are, when it comes to CO2, they are fantastic. All the names that you see here on the slide, they have this science-based approach. That means that you have a third-party verification that you reduce, how much CO2 emissions you have. Down here, these are Norwegian companies. if you take the 100 largest companies in Norway by turnover, they say how many are there that actually comply with the Paris Agreement. It's actually only 9. But out of these 9, it is 4 that is seafood companies. And up here, I'm showing you, in DNB, because, it's, we report on this, the transition of our balance sheet. These are emissions per kilo salmon produced by our clients. So we take this into the DNB reporting, and that is the way the world is moving now. So, very good when it comes to these things. Then, the last thing, social license, politics and regulations. Yes, perhaps it's a bit, I think that the headline, if you see what it says here, that we link borrowing cost to welfare goals as bank, I call this unacceptable. I think I said almost unacceptable, and it is the pictures that are unacceptable. And of course, we know that things happen in this industry. And if we are in Chile, you know that you can have algae in the morning, and the fish is healthy and swimming around. In the evening, it's dead. But you need to do, you need to you do your utmost to avoid this. You need to communicate in a better way when the shit hits the fan here. So this is important. Because without this social license, I think that you get stricter regulations than you need to. Because where will the gain from new technology go? Will it go in the direction of increased growth and value creation? Or it will be for the benefit of fish welfare? Yeah, and I cannot give you the answer what is correct, but I think that you should be very aware of these questions. And then I will try to talk a bit about politics. This is, have you seen this before? This is from the US, Democrats versus Republicans in 1994 and 2017. It used to be this way, that the ones in the middle, well, they were the winners. I think that the trend you see in a lot of countries now is that the things goes to the wings. And when elections goes to the wings, politics become more volatile. And of course, politics is important to all of us, but perhaps even more important to industries that are heavily regulated, which salmon is. So, and it's difficult to de-risk this, but to take care of your social license is at least a very good choice. And then being green. Yeah. Do you know what I'm going to talk about now? No. This is tax. Okay, everyone has a plan until you're punched in the face, right? So what have the Norwegian farmers done post the resource tax? I think, a lot of resources was put into, could we change this, how can we do, in a way, a wrong focus, but at least there's a lot of focus. Then we can see that they have reorganized all the companies so that you're sure that you're only taxed in the sea phase with the resource tax. So a lot of resources has gone into this. And then it is still a lot of uncertainty how this would play out, how you will be taxed. So it's not easy. And what do we see as a bank? Because we are also banking a lot of the suppliers here. We see that investments has been put on hold. And we see both uncertainty and because you don't have all the money that you used to have. But hopefully things will normalize, and that the company do what is right for the business and not demonstrate, that they just don't like this. Yeah, on the Norwegian side, there is things up in the air that has not landed yet. Here the picture of the former seafood minister with Nøstbakken-utvalget, which I think, gave a lot of good advice, how to improve the things that we that is the challenge here. It could be, you know, that this perhaps more should be decided at the government level and less on the local level. You know, so you can see this, do the right decision for the country and not only for the local community. It is about using new technology that I touched upon, and it's also more related to the individual company and not to the area where you operate. For instance, the traffic light system, which is not perfect, right? It's not granulated enough. We see that, you know, despite the fact that the areas has been red for years, they have grown the biomass in these areas, and that doesn't help on the biological issue. And then we're also awaiting a white paper on animal welfare. That's not only for seafood, but for all livestock, etc. And you know, that could also put extra pressure on this industry due to all the noise that we have had lately. Yeah, so corporate strategy becomes more complicated. You know, it used to be like this. It's, you know, the lowest cost that is the winners. But now you need to take more things into account. That could go when it comes to get more robust value chains, geopolitics, but also geographic technology, ESG tax. So things become more complicated, and it's not that one strategy fits all. And in a way, it gets also more interesting this way. And then my last slide. This is just, you know, we are more than 50 people working with seafood in DNB. We bank with 17 of the 20 largest salmon farmers globally. Our exposure is somewhere between 8 and 9 billion US. And we have an office in Santiago and in Oslo, or through the Norwegian coast. No other banks has this set up. Here in Chile, I think that we bank with 12 of the 17 farmers. Okay? So then over to Ola, and then equity.
Yes, thank you very much, Anne. So it's my pleasure to present to you our global salmon market outlook. So I think by starting looking at the share price development since the resource tax was announced in Norway, you can see that shares have dropped massively in in September 2022. But since then, the salmon price has remained strong, and actually share prices have recovered a lot, and you can see that different companies was affected differently by their exposure to Norway and the sea phase in Norway. So Movi, for instance, was almost fully recovered in May 2023, while SalMar was actually hit the hardest here, but has recovered impressively and is now back to the level before the resource tax was announced. On the other side, you see there's a big division between two groups, and there are three companies which are still not recovered, and that is reflecting the large differences that Anne was talking about in terms of margins and biological performance. So this is showing the Oslo Seafood Index, and we usually have these big teams. In the beginning of 2020, it was the pandemic with COVID. Then it shifted to inflation, also escalated by the war in Ukraine. Then, of course, we had the resource tax, and now it's fish health, which is the big issue. So, turning to global supply, as Anne was talking about, this is the large picture. Supply growth was actually quite strong in the beginning of this industry, but there is only one trend, and that is downwards. And it's increasingly hard to see where production growth can come from. And that is a problem, since we need more of this product, and it has a lot of good properties we need in the future. So these are our supply estimates. Maybe a bit small numbers, but in total supply, we expect 0.9% growth this year, 3.3% next year, and 2.9% in 2026. So around 3% growth going forward is what I expect for the industry. And that should support strong prices also going forward. If you look up here, you can notice that absolute production in tons have actually been very stable last 4 years. And this is showing the picture that it's very difficult to actually grow production. And you don't need to go long back to see different expectations. This is from Kontali, which is a leading modeler of biomass globally. And actually the expectation for this year was 5.1% production growth in November last year. But in February, that was cut to 2.3%, and I think now it's down to 2%. So what we've seen since then is that expectations have come down for all production regions, both Norway, Chile, and all other regions. And that is quite unusual to see simultaneous cuts to supply growth. And this is sort of the market estimates out there for 2024. So on the high end, you have Movi's high-end estimate of 4%. Then you have Kontali at 2.3. Our estimate is 2, and the Movi's low end is 0.4. And I think what's realistic now is between 2 and 0.4. So this is going to be another tight year of supply. So looking at the demand side, this is from Milarex. It's a big European processor, and it shows how demand development has been in retail in primarily Europe. And on the x-axis, you have the volume change, and on the y-axis, you have the price change. So all lands or countries above this line has had a positive demand development. And this data is from September 2023, so it's some quarters old. But actually, you can see that even though prices are higher and volumes are lower, most countries have still a positive development in retail demand. And this is from Seafood Norway. It shows how the price of salmon has developed compared to seafood, other proteins like beef, poultry, pork, and food in general across major markets like US, France, UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain. And the big picture here is that, yes, food has increased in price, so has salmon, but salmon has not increased more than other foods. And this is showing the demand development in two large markets, the EU and US. And we can see that the demand is actually developing in line with historical patterns. So, for instance, in the EU, we have seen that the value consumed has scaled back over the last part of 2023, but it has bottomed out and started to return to growth again. And that is in line with the historical pattern. In the US, it's a bit behind the EU, still declining, and we are probably looking to set a bottom and see it stabilize before returning to growth again. And this is only a reminder that globally, salmon is a niche protein, 3 million tons. The poultry industry is 40 times larger, so it's not one-to-one shifting consumption between poultry and salmon. Also, when you look at relative prices, you can see that salmon is not any more expensive than other proteins, and even though it's most expensive, that is the way it has been historically as well. So it's not a big threat on a relative basis. So turning to the price picture, Our salmon price estimates for the next 3 years are 7.9 euros, 8 and 8.1 euros, and that is the Norwegian reference price. So we are still expecting high prices and quite stable from this level. When you look at the Chilean price, we are also expecting those to follow the European ones, and the Miami D-trim fillet in dollars per pound, we are estimating $6 this year, 6.1 next year, and 6.2. So stable and high prices. It's also a picture going back showing how salmon prices in different regions, if it's in Seattle, Norway, or Miami, it tends to develop very similarly, and arbitrage opportunities tend to be closed, although differences can exist for some time. But it's, in Norway at least, it's a big difference between the spot price and the realized price. And the chart up here shows you the amount of superior fish, which is the high quality fish, and it has actually declined a lot last couple of years. So the superior share in 2017 was 91%, and now it's 86.4%. And the downgraded fish need to be processed in Norway before it's allowed to be exported. And it's very large differences which company have processing capacity to handle this. And of course, the downgraded fish is selling with a big discount. So even though spot prices are high, not every farmer is able to utilize the opportunities in the market. And on the chart down here, you can see the average harvest weights in Norway. And the average last couple of years, last 5 years, is in the dotted line. And you can see 2023 in the green was below the 5-year average, but more periods with average performance. But the start to 2024 in this yellow or in purple line is actually showing that average harvest weights are at 10-year low levels. So this picture is showing that seawater production in Norway is actually quite demanding. It's a lot of downgrades, troubles with quality, and very low average harvest weights. And this is also showing the amount of downgraded fish. It used to be 10% downgrades in the light green here in peak season in 2018. But you can see how the amount of downgraded fish has increased every year. And this year it has averaged 30%, and at the peak it was almost 40%. So really big challenges with quality in Norway. And the dark green line here shows the Norwegian reference price, and you can see how it is very nicely correlated with the lower supply, reduced supply of superior fish. So that is a big challenge in Norway. Yeah, this is the classical regression line between global supply growth and price change. And as you can see, the price in 2022 took a real step up. It was up 40%, while 2023 was flattish, even though supply did not increase much from 2022. So you could ask, is this really soft demand playing out? And also you can notice that the R2 here has actually decreased quite a lot. And this goes back to the year of 2000. But if you split this into the first and last period, you can see actually that in the beginning, the correlation was almost perfect. If you had the supply change, you could easily forecast the price change. And the R2 was 0.86, almost perfect. Now, in the later period, this has actually changed quite a lot. You cannot find a high correlation anymore, and you see that prices either tend to do a material uptick, like in 2016 and 2022, or it's a period of consolidation. and 2023 was a period of consolidation. So this is not the best way to look at demand development. So this model is probably the best one to use. You look at the global value consumed in euro terms, and you can see how demand has developed in these step changes. And that happened in 2007, 2010, 2013, 2016, and again after the pandemic in 2022. And in that sense, you can see that 2023 demand was actually just in line with historical performance. So demand is developing as expected. If you look at this in Norwegian crowns, it's not a step change. You know, it's almost exponential increase in demand. So that tells you how currency is helping. But of course, value consumed should be measured in euros. Turning to the cost side, costs have increased steadily in Norway. We're looking at a production cost of 60 on average in 2023, increasing to 63 this year, and then rolling back to 61 in 25 as we expect ingredients for feed to normalize. And you can see the split here in between feed and other costs, and it's the last couple of years actually feed has increased 8 NOK per kilo, so it's dramatic. But in 25 we expect a normalization and further normalization in 26. Non-feed cost is also increasing, and we're modeling a 1 NOK per kilo increase there going forward, primarily driven by biology. And these are the key input factors for the feed. Of course, as you can see up to the left, fish oil has been explosive prices in 22 and also in 2023. And we expect still a high level in 24, but as the fishery in Peru is normalizing, we expect this to come back down and also result in lower feed costs. For fish meal, we think the peak has been, of course, a less dramatic development, but we also see this to normalize through 24 and into 2025. For the vegetable ingredients, wheat and rapeseed oil, we actually see that we are back to the level more or less as we saw before the pandemic. Yeah, and this is the picture in Norway. The biggest cost component in Norway now is the biology. And it was in 2020, it was above 12 NOK per kilo, and I think it's maybe 15 NOK now. But this is a big opportunity for the supplier industry to try to solve these issues. There's a lot of money in improving biology, big opportunity. So turning to valuation, this is the Oslo Seafood Index. They're currently trading at 12.7 times next 12 months earnings. And it has, the multiples have come down slightly since the pandemic, so we are now below the 5-year average, but we are still above the 10-year average. So sort of back to the valuations we saw prior to the pandemic and the very low interest rates. So that was the last slide for me. Thanks. How do you? Oh, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Esteban Szasz. I work in DNB as a client advisor. I'm in charge of originating new transactions in the corporate investment banking space in Latin America. I'm going to give you a financial market update split in 2 parts. The first part is the macro side, trying to explain what is going on with the rates, the dollar rates. That is very important for finance departments to understand how to, forecast their cash flows in the coming years, but also how to, apply certain discounts to their valuations in viability of projects. No? And the second part of the presentation will be focused on give you an update on the M&A, debt, and capital markets in Chile. So I'm going to start with the macro update. I'm going to try to tell you what is going to happen with the rates. Nobody knows where the rates will be, but we will try to explain. Our bank has economists dedicated to trying to forecast where these rates will be in the future, and the dynamics as to why they moved a certain way. If you see inflation over the past 50 years, we see that in the 70s we had a major hike in inflation. That's important to keep in mind for the upcoming slides, because I'm going to get to a conclusion on that. But you see that up to the end of December last year, inflation was coming down after the pandemic, where we saw a big price increase in different products. What happened as of December? The market saw that inflation was coming down, that the Fed was about to lower rates, therefore interest rate came down. So our estimates on the market in different currencies, not only dollars, but also euros and NOK. But what happened after December? From December to March, the job market in the US got stronger than we thought. Therefore, wages went up. More money flowing into people for them to spend in goods, and therefore, and also a lot of friction in that market. Therefore, more demand for jobs, and that generated a spiral of additional inflation that we weren't expecting. Therefore, from December to March, what banks have done is said, well, we expected for rates to go lower in the coming quarters, but now, given the new inflationary pressures, we're going to say, let's be more conservative, and now we expect for rates to decrease, but in a lower pace and in time. If we make an analysis of how the market is today, the first quarter is already done, so what we see that is going to happen during the next quarter is that the labor market in the US remains really, really hot. What does it mean? That wages will continue to go up. In the charts that I'm showing, it's basically the medium-size enterprises' willingness to pay for higher compensation. That means that the market it's moving, and therefore we should expect additional pressure from this side of the economy in the US, but also rent prices are going up. Therefore, the cost of living for people is increasing. Therefore, their purchase parity is going down. Remember the first slide that I showed about the 70s inflation? So what happened in the 70s? The Fed saw the rates, inflation coming down. They said, we're ready to lower our base rate. They did, and what happened is that created a massive spike in inflation again. So what they want to avoid is entering into the same situation once more. So they are learning from the past in order to avoid a recession by lowering rates before they should. There's a famous Norwegian economist that says basically it has paid off to be patient. That's why when we hear the Fed announcing how they're gonna behave in the coming quarters, we see that they say, let's try to be more conservative. We don't want to move the rates too fast. And that's partially how that is explained. This is a very important chart for the CFOs, CEOs, and finance departments of companies. You see, these are our estimates of where policy rates will be, not only for the US, but the rest of important economies for the bank. And you see history, but you also see the forecast. The little gray line divides present and future. And you see that rates will go down. Why? Because basically that is healthy for the American and other economies, because you need to lower rates in order to grow. The problem is that, as you see from essentially 2010 to 2020, we lived in a sort of zero to negative rate environment, and that is over, that is gone. We need to adjust to our new reality, which is base rates, or in the case of US rates, slightly above 3.5%. So that is what clients we believe will pay on top of the spreads they pay in their loans. That is not over, because after October, fourth quarter this year, in November, we have elections in the US. So everything indicates that Mr. Trump will win the elections. These are some polls that show that Trump is with an advantage. Also, the swing states indicates that Republicans have an advantage. But what does it mean if Trump wins, right? This is positioning ourselves, let's say, at the start of 2025. The first thing we believe is going to happen is that he's going to impose higher tariffs. We're going to talk about that. There will be less immigration, higher oil production, certain, probably lower taxes, and certain changes in geopolitics. Why tariffs is important? Because if Mr. Trump says, I want to be more protectionist towards the US economy, I'm going to bring more production into the country. Therefore, creating new products will mean that they will cost more, therefore pushing inflation upwards. Inflation, as we remember, is not good for economies to grow. So if Mr. Trump wins, we would expect higher inflation temporarily, lower growth temporarily, and that ultimately means that we would live in a higher rate environment for a longer period. Therefore, the reduction in rates that we showed previous slides ago is going to have a smoother path towards the 375 area. Now I'm going to talk about the debt and advisory markets. Before talking to that, I need to replicate what Anne said. We are the world's #1 seafood bank. We're very proud of that. We have a lot of teams dedicated to the sector. In Latin America, what we do is essentially pelagic fisheries in Chile and Peru, and we do salmon farming in Chile. Again, dedicated team. If you need to reach us, you know that we will be there for you. But this slide is very important for you to understand who we are. This is a summary of our investment banking capabilities. This shows the transactions on the left side of the chart. You see the ECM transactions, equity capital markets transactions. In the middle, the merger and acquisitions, and in the right, the debt capital markets. We are by far the largest player in this market globally, so we have visibility on what is happening in the sector. Why I bring this slide to talk about Chile? Because, if there's a market to tap on, besides Chile is Norway, so we have visibility on where the liquidity would be available for companies. No? In M&A, merger and acquisitions, in Chile we talk about consolidation. We believe that this market is not going to experience a consolidation wave in the short term, but definitely it has to go through a consolidation period at some point. What are the main elements that need to change in order for consolidation to start? Is changes in interest rates, as we discussed in the previous part of the presentation. The second is that political risk need to relatively become lower, and most importantly, basically the expectations of prices for owners of company need to meet with what investors are willing to pay. Today, the gap is too wide. People believe that their companies are worth too much, and basically investors are willing to pay little. Therefore, the bid-ask price is not narrow. Therefore, when these elements change, or if there's a massive unexpected M&A transaction, we should start seeing that consolidation occurring in the sector. That is M&A. That is the center of the slide. On the left side, equity capital markets. As Anne was mentioning, we've done a lot of equity transactions. The problem is that for Chile, that market is not quite attractive. Why? Because potential Chilean issuers haven't been showing good results over the past years, so it's hard to sell a good equity story to the market. But the market is open at a discount. On the right side, the DCM market, which is the bond market, debt capital markets, we have issued many bonds in Norway. We could issue bonds for Chilean issuers. The problem is that prices for bonds are above what the bank market can offer to them. We're very proud of this slide. This is our bread and butter for the Santiago office. All these credentials show what we dedicate our time on. This is just to show you what we've been doing from 2019 on the lending side. We financed several Chilean and Peruvian players. This is to show you that we're active, we have capital, we have interest in the industry, the country, and the sector, and that we are available for our clients and interesting opportunities. So the message here is that we are here to stay. We are a long-term player. We understand the sector. We understand the cycles of the industries you participate on. And that, if you have good ideas for either investing or refinancing your indebtedness, happy to discuss. No? With that, I finish my presentation. I'm going to invite Ola and Anne to join the stage for questions, if you have some. So we're going to offer the public, the crowd, some space for Q&A. Anyone? There you go. Sorry, there you go. Thank you very much, Gino, for being so kind to be proactive and ask questions. That, besides the fact that he's a friend of the bank, of course. No?
Hi. Yes. Hi, thanks for the presentation. Looking for the outlook of the market, I wonder if you see if there is any appetite of local or international banks towards the seafood sector.
Probably I should take that one. Yes, thank you, Gino. I mean, over the past, I would say, 10 years, the market has shifted. Previously, the market was served by pure local banks, and starting 2015, there was an important change into international players coming into force in the market. And now I would say that most of the demand for loans are explained by a mix of international and local banks. What has happened is that the international banks are the ones structuring the transactions and securing large tickets or amounts of transactions, and then they syndicate towards the local market. But the good thing is that many local banks are learning of the sector, so it's becoming a larger community. So today, when you go and syndicate a transaction, there's more interest from different names, which it's good for clients, because the more banks you have in a transaction, the lower the price could be.
Thank you.
Hi, we're here, Luis Aleman from Macquarie Bank. I got a question for maybe the three of you. So during your presentation, you mentioned that the currency exchange has a huge impact on the economics of salmon. So I would like to know if you have any forecasts or expectations as to what currencies may do in the near future, perhaps, and what would be the impact to the economics of the salmon industry. Thank you.
Is this functioning? Yeah. Yeah, no, you know, of course, we were not quite certain, you know, is the salmon price in NOK or in euros? And then we had tried to make a lot of calculations going back and forth, but we are not quite certain. And when you're not quite certain, you say, this is a 50-50 thing. And then, of course, if the NOK should strengthen, what kind of impact that will have. Yeah, so someone will say that, you know, the profitability of the Norwegian salmon industry is very, very linked to the weakening NOK.
Yeah.
David Farkas, the question is, with the increasing pressure for bacterial diseases in Norway, animal welfare, and increasing costs, do you foresee a change in Norwegian policy in terms of the use of antibiotics in the coming future?
I expect that will be part of the, you know, when the government is coming with a new animal welfare white paper, that could be part of the discussion, right? But I haven't, if I go to Norway, I don't hear anything about this. If I go here and talk to the salmon farmers, all of them are asking that question. Because, you know, it would be beneficial for the Chilean farmers, right?
Might be working now, thank you. I was interested in your comment, I'm from the United States, on why you believe Trump would reinstitute tariffs. And my thinking is that right now, because we in Washington State have, through a corrupt official, really outlawed, they haven't outlawed it, but have made salmon farming or salmonids, native species, impossible to do, impossible for companies to engage in. So if Trump gets elected, which it looks like is highly likely, and he institutes tariffs, well, Norwegian salmon is the only thing we're getting in our supermarkets. What will that do to the market?
That's a very good question. When we talk about increasing tariffs, we are talking generally, not necessarily to the salmon farming market specifically. You're right. If you add tariffs on a specific product, that could generate an imbalance in the market, which couldn't be beneficial for the U.S. consumers. But we're talking about more of general tariffs by means of nearshoring, so bringing certain industries closer to the market or directly to be produced within the U.S. No, this let's say made in USA wave for providing higher amount of jobs to the U.S. economy. So by you know moving, let me put an example. If you move a factory from, let's say, Asian country with cheap labor and you move it into the U.S., that will generate higher prices in the goods sold. That's what we mean by tariffs generally. So we should expect higher inflation in that regard. There's two more.
Hi, my name is Pedro Gurar from Cermac. During this first quarter, the harvest in Chile has been quite low compared to previous quarter. And at the same time, prices in the US has not been as good as they were in the last first quarter in previous year. So is that meaning the consumption of salmon in the US is being affected in some way?
I think I talked about that we see that there is a slight decrease in consumption in the US. And then, you know, the Norwegians sell wherever they can get the most, and they have this niche into the US. I think the Canadian salmon has their strong distribution chain. So this small reduction in demand has hit the Chilean industry.
Hi, hello. Oscar Garay from Australis. I have a question regarding to the tax regulation in Norway, because the new tax regulation for salmon producer. Because in the beginning, a lot of producers there in Norway say that this tax will have, will have a big impact in the investment for the future. But now, after the time, happen, do you think that that will be a huge impact in the investment for the future, or not really? What do you think about that?
We estimate that like for 30 million NOK of investments has been put on hold. We see that things are picking up now, and then there are some players to say, we will await the next election and then see what happens. But it seems that they are to invest in the things that are right for the business. They are doing so, but we see that a lot of the investments they are doing, they are really core for the company. So it used to be that way, that the farmers had a lot of money and they were investing in a lot of things. Now you see that this is very close. Yeah, they're investing in things that are close to the sea phase, and that is extremely key for their business. So they are changing the attitude a bit from what it was.
Hello, Christian Cosi over here. In terms of investment requirements in inshore aquaculture production, have you been any increase in the past years, and how do you see it's going to shift in the future?
Inshore, you mean lakes, or?
I mean tanks.
We haven't seen, or we have not been involved in that. We see these closed compartments in sea, which we think is, it's very energy friendly, and they also has some disadvantages. But to use closed compartments in sea up to a certain size, that could make a lot of sense. And also this circular part of the business, that you can handle waste and you turn fish it into value, that is important. So I think that will be part of the solution. And if you're in the fjord, I think that's a very, very good thing. But then again, they are waiting for these environmentally friendly licenses, so they think they can change ordinary licenses into these environmentally friendly licenses, and then we expect huge investments in this.
Hello. This is, hi, and this is Matt Craze. I have a question. I think you just said that 30 billion NOK of investments are on hold in Norway. Could you drill down into what, where these investments are not going ahead? Is it post-smolt, is it processing? Could you actually give a figure as to how many of the post-smolt investments are on hold?
No, I don't have the drill down for that, but it was a lot of these post-smolt facilities that were put on hold. So we are banking with the suppliers of this industry, and they haven't had perfect times, right? So we see that has been reduced, but we think that it is picking up now. It's also, for instance, I'm talking in the entire sector, so we also see less well boats being built, but that could be tax, but it's also the price of steel and inflation. When it comes to processing facilities, everything was put on hold, but we have been touching upon these fish health issues. So if you are able to process the fish in Norway, that is very favorable. So we see still investments in that space. But it's a lot of these things that you were not certain that should happen. There's so many startups, grown-up company out there that you see less interest in. And the 30 million, that is the estimate from Norwegian Seafood Council? Yeah. Okay. I hope that we get safe home in between. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.